Okay, now it's time to create the next section. You'll notice in here that I indicate that cocktails, or whatever we have at this particular section, is one paragraph. There's a possibility that it might be extended into 2 paragraphs, but we're going to try to keep this at 1 paragraph. However, I reserve the right to create 2 paragraphs if I need to. Now, at this point, I need to introduce my guests and explain to the crowd how they came to be at the party. Okay, so I'm going to have to call people together somewhere because we're outside. We are at a big event, and so I need to create the context for this because I've already indicated in my transition that I greet the guests, invite them to enjoy a glass of Vinish or jigger of Tullamore Dew, ice cold Orchard Thieves cider, or non-alcoholic Shamrock slush from the cart brought in by my volunteers. Let the festivities begin. Now I indicate here that festivities are going to happen, so I can't forget that I'm at a party. So I'm going to create content here that indicates the party atmosphere. Now I decided that this cocktail hour that I'm including in this festivity is going to include 2 paragraphs. The first, I'm going to set the stage with what's happening at this event, and then I'm going to introduce 2 of the guests that are already on board for the project. And then, because I need to have opposition, I'm going to indicate that I'm starting a new paragraph to introduce the last 2 invited guests, and those guests are going to need some convincing. Because if nobody needed any more convincing, then the essay would be over. So let's see what we did here with this beginning of this paragraph, these 2 paragraphs called cocktails. All right. The day begins with entertainment for the whole family. Now remember, I've created a big county fair, so I've got kids, I've got adults. The kids are wonderful, they're adorable, we love them, but they don't have any money. And we are at a fundraiser, so it's important to get the children out of the scene so that we can talk to the adults. After our jousting contest, and here's where we're going to put in that image from the jousting contest because some of our readers might not know. So let's go back and remember that jousting picture that we found. Let's go ahead and put that in right here. Now when I make this in the essay, I'm not sure where this picture will go, but I have it here in the outline so I know where it goes, and that's great. The children are escorted away for face painting, maypole decorating. I don't need to put in the maypole decorating or face painting or rounds of duck, duck, goose or any of these other things because I'm not here to talk about the children. I'm here to get money for this project. So I gotta make sure that I keep my focus on what it is that I'm doing. So after we have the children moved out of frame, then we invite the adults to go into the lovely stage area, which is a tent. Presentation tent, where I have an Irish linen presentation screen, above a lovely stage area, trays of hors d'oeuvres, and this kind of thing. So the first thing that I do, I'm still in this same paragraph, is I thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to introduce the band, and Bono is going to say quotes that Bono has already said, and I make sure that I quote where that information came from. All right? Oh, I've already shifted tense. I'm keeping it in present tense. All right, now the next person up and the last person in this paragraph is William Butler Yeats because I'm introducing people who are for this project. And I have him up here. Here's the interesting thing about William Butler Yeats. As you can see in my essay, everything is color, isn't it? I don't have any black and white pictures in this entire essay, and I'm not going to start now. So I have to be clever. And I think, how can I get a picture of William Butler Yeats home from the grave and get his picture included in this outline? Well, I go to Google and I search for color pictures of William Butler Yeats, and I find a painting that has been created. So you'll see where I say, as he steps onto the platform, his eyes tear up when he sees projected onto the screen Bernie Keogh's depiction of Yeats at his renovated castle. Yes, where's that picture? I'm going to go ahead and put it in here so I know it's there. And so that is how I cleverly include a picture of Yeats without breaking my color pattern that I've established in the essay. Now let's take a break right here in this first paragraph of this section, and let's see where I got all this information. I have my EasyBib page open as always, so now let's go over and take a look at the pages that I opened to find out this information. Because I don't know this on my own, I have to research. All right, so one of the things that he says, which is a quote from him, "This, my friends, is the world of hope," Yeats proclaimed. Present tense. Fighting back the tears. "I bought this castle for my beloved wife, George." Now, we've talked about George as we were studying this before. Are you curious about George? I kind of am. So let me go see. I just looked it up just because I'm curious. I'm still going to add this to my works cited because I studied it to study William Butler Yeats. And so here is her name, Bertha Georgie Hyde Lees. Now I want to know what she looks like. Well, she's just pretty as she can be. Okay, on we go. Now let's look at how I got this information. Here are all the windows that I opened to get that information, and here's my EasyBib. Let's just go ahead and start with this one. Right? Copy it, go over to EasyBib, This is the picture that I found, so I'm going to copy that and add that to EasyBib. This is where I got the quote and information from Bono. Now, I put a few words in his mouth, but it's nothing that he wouldn't say, because he's already been knighted by Elizabeth II for his humanitarian work. So I'm going to make up the fact that he and his band are going to support the cause, but I'm still going to use this quote page to show the reader that this is not something that would be unlike anything he would say. So I'm going to go ahead and cite this. Add that. Okay, so you can see that our citations are up to 35. And you can see that in this outlining process, I'm doing all of the work for the essay without having to go back later and add them. I'm doing that as I go along. So I've already gotten the work and the bones of this essay created, and I keep adding to it as I go along. So I'm not going to be stuck at the end trying to figure out where I got information. I'm doing it as I go, and I'm doing it in the outline, so it's going to turn out to be perfect. So I start by setting the stage for what's happening in the day. I escort the children off to an area where they won't be around the adults so that the adults can talk money and talk about the cause. I greet everyone and thank them for coming and remind them why we are here. I want to keep reminding people why we're here. And I state the reason why we're here, and that is to raise $500,000. Now, when I get to the last two people who have to be convinced, we're going to discover that this is not really the correct number, that it's going to be more expensive than that. The first people that I'm going to introduce is going to be the band, because they're going to then leave and get ready to set up and do the concert that evening. So I've 1 minute, and this is Bono speaking in his own words. And then I indicate where those words, come from. Oh, let's fix that. I almost cry when I hear Bono say those words. I didn't know that the band had already decided to support the cause. So now I know that we have supporters in here. I invite William Butler Yeats to the stage. As he steps onto the platform, his eyes tear up when he sees projected onto the screen the depiction of him at the castle. This is my friend's world of hope. I worry about how my final two guests will respond to this effort. That is my transition sentence. Now the reader knows that the next paragraph is going to contain information about the other two guests who might not necessarily agree with this whole thing. All right? So we're still in this section, and we're in the second paragraph. That concludes this tutorial about the very first paragraph of section 2.